Welcome everybody. We're starting the streaming of the ChileMass, the first streaming of the ChileMass Teachers Instagram. So we are so proud to have Jennifer Phillips, our program manager of the ChileMass Teachers program, and the star of this program. Really, she's doing many things about this for now 3 years.
4 years.
4 years. My God. Yeah. So yeah, we miss some other people. Antonia, you should come and say hello.
Come up.
Yeah,
come
and Sofia Mate, that we will miss her.
We miss Sofia.
I think she's connected. Antonia, she has been like a really good help in organizing everything for this program. So
I'm glad we'd stay up here.
Further ado, Jennifer, start with everything.
Hi everyone, welcome. Oh, Antonia, you were supposed to stay up here. Antonia is a really valuable member of the team, as is Sophia. Hi Sophia, we miss you. We hope you're having fun. I want to welcome you to the ChileMass Teachers program. We're here live in Cambridge. Good afternoon. It's kind of a rainy day, but that's okay. This is the last day of a very long and intensive 3-week program that we've had with our teachers. Over the past 3 weeks, our 9 student teachers have observed and shadowed teachers in public schools in Framingham, taught in a trauma-sensitive school, multilingual elementary school in Brockton, participated in at least 6 different workshop sessions focused on both pedagogy and developing as teachers. We've toured universities, we've had some full-day workshops, we met with education students, they met with the Spanish Club at Framingham State, they participated in the campus activities in Framingham, they visited museums and cultural sites, including a weekend in New York. So it's been a very busy 3 weeks. In January, we started the program online, and the teachers began their experience with professors from Framingham State College, focused on 2 key areas: developing their practical understanding of UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, in the classroom, and STEAM teaching and learning for English teachers. STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. The teachers also in January chose a topic or a problem of practice to research, and that's why we're here today. A problem of practice is an area of teaching or learning that is identifiable as a problem or a conflict, a problem that is identifiable, observable, actionable, and connects to a broader strategy of improvement. In other words, if we change something, we can have a better result. You're about to hear 4 presentations from student teachers who found time to synthesize their research with their observations in the US and their experiences in Chile. Their presentations are incredibly rich, thoughtful, and actionable ideas. We want to thank our partners at Framingham State, the Chris Walsh Center and Therese Adjam Roberts, the Framingham Public Schools, the George School in Brockton, the Roche Center at Boston College and their partner schools, all the teachers, administrators, workshop leaders, and everyone who met us with kindness, enthusiasm, and encouragement. We're not letting you go. I would like now to turn it over to our esteemed panelists to introduce themselves. They'll be listening to the presentations and will give us feedback at the end. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We met before in Haxi. I'm Margarita Vial. I'm also from Chile, and I'm here doing a Master in Education in a program that is called LOE, because it's Education, Leadership, Organizations, and Entrepreneurship. I'm a psychologist, and I worked for 6 years in Chile in Fundación Astoreca, that also worked to serve subventionized schools in Chile. It's like charter schools here. And I was in charge of the development area. So I work mostly in all that things that are not academic in school. So we run a character strengths program to do that work and to especially focus on the school culture management in our schools. So I'm really happy to meet you all again and to listen for your amazing ideas that we already read about it. So yeah, happy to meet you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Tomás Rivadeneira. I am also from Chile. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel and to have the opportunity to see your work and what have you been doing in these last 3 weeks. I am a teacher and engineer, and I started working in education about 10, 12 years ago. First in the Enseña Chile program in Chile, and then with some people from Enseña Chile, we started a school in a low-income community in Chile called the CRE School. I had many roles in that school, and the last 4 years I was principal of the school. And 2 years ago, I came here to study the same master's in education as Margarita, and now I'm studying an MBA program at MIT. And yeah, well, that's why I'm in Cambridge at this moment. I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to your presentations.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Teresita, but you can call me Tere. I'm also an engineering and math teacher. I started working in, same as Tomás, in Enseña Chile in Puente Alto. I did classes there for 2 years, and then I decided to stay in education. I was working in CRE School with Tomás for the last 3 years. I'm also studying this master program, but I'm super excited to be here and to again connect with the classroom, what is really happening in Chile, in our communities. That is the most important thing. I think here we are more in a hypothetical, maybe utopic mindset, and so I'm super excited to be here, and I hope to learn from you, and I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, this amazing panel. Now we will start with the presentations.
So good afternoon, everyone. We are Daniel Martinez and Jamie Lepiane, and we're going to present to you our project, our program of practice project that is called, it is an action research, and the action research is called Exploring the Implementation of Project Based in an EFL Classroom. So the content of this presentation will be, first, we're going to talk a little bit about us, who we are, also our experience in our previous internship, the Chilean context that we dig deeper so we could see what are the causes of this problem of practice, also the problem of practice itself, what we identified, the actual research proposal, the project-based learning. Lastly, we're going to give to you the summary of the research and also our future product. So, about us. So yeah, I had to do here, I don't, so sorry for that. And this is Daniel. So we are both students from the English pedagogy for English pedagogy at Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. Our main area of interest, at least in education, is our curriculum studies, inclusive education, and also teaching through arts. We both love music, so we had the opportunity to do an activity in which we teach some geography of Chile using music, and it was pretty amazing. Yeah. So our previous internships, so we were both at a public school in San Joaquin, Santiago. This school was administrated by the Servicio Local de Educación Pública, SLEP. So they had a lot of different vulnerable schools, but what really caught our attention is that our school, Fray Camilo Enriquez, was one of the most vulnerable schools, at least in San Joaquin. So they had an 83% of vulnerability among students, and English lessons start in first grade. Also, it was at least the methodology inside the classroom was teacher-centered, and it has this grammar-oriented approach. So what problems arise from this is that what really caught our attention is that even though they started learning English in first grade, and in fifth grade, that is mandatory from a national curriculum, they didn't have a really big improvement in terms of language proficiency. So something was happening. So there we wanted to ask ourselves, what is the problem? What is causing that these students do not have a better proficiency level than other schools that start in 5th grade? So that's why the aim of the study, in this case, the last one, sorry, is to address the outdated English as a foreign language teaching methodologies prevalent in vulnerable public schools in Chile. We also want to seek to explore alternatives, methodologies, so we can alleviate this problem, focusing on cooperative learning based on an article from De la Barra and Carbone, dialogue-based learning, and project-based learning. And to be honest, from all of these different methodologies, we choose project-based learning, and we will explain to you why we choose this one. But first, we want to give to you a little bit of the context and also what we identified as probably the causes of this problem of practice. So most of the problems inside the education in Chile, educational system in Chile, are rooted in inequality. So it is well known that Chile and also United States, we read an article about it from Gaeta and Gomez, have a big issue with inequality. There are some portion of the population that has most of the economic wealthy, are more wealthier than the others. And also that at the same time has the problem of not giving the same opportunities for everyone. That there are some students, and most of the students, that do not have opportunity to, at least in our subject, to be exposed to language, to be exposed to English. So, as stated by Gaeta and Gomez, income inequality in nation, state, or city has effects not only on the practice of schooling, but also on the students' achievements. So most of these students do not have what we want to achieve, that is a very good language proficiency, and that's why we believe that inequality is one of the main sources of this problem of practice. Also the privatization of schools, because the systematic exclusion of poor children from many private and charter schools allows them, private schools, to say that, to make their claim of success. We provide the best education in Chile, but of course you will do if the students that belongs or that stays in the school are the ones who can achieve that success, to be successful in education. So apart from that, as we told you, it's the old-fashioned methodologies. So most municipal schools keep using these old-fashioned methodologies, like meditation center, teacher is always the controller of the lesson, and also this grammar translation method, whereas private schools make use of more modern approaches that help the students develop productive skills such as speaking and writing. And that's what we want to aim to improve and to enhance their students' communicative skills.
Okay, so now regarding the problem of practice, regarding what Jamie mentioned, what we found as the main problem is the lack of communicative skills among students. As we mentioned, classes tend to be teacher-centered and very grammar-oriented. Students are learning just about the grammar structures, the grammatical rules, So they are losing this part where they communicate, where they converse with their partners, where they can have a fluent conversation to talk or discuss about anything. So we think that the lack of communicative skills, it's the main problem of practice, and that's why we wanted to look for a possible solution, an implementation, so we can solve this, or at least target it to solve it in the future. So, in this sense, we have this proposal that is an action research in which we, teachers, are the main researchers of the study, and we want to implement project-based learning in the classroom. So this would work with me during the first semester of this year. I will start in March till July, and Jamie will continue it in another school from August till December. So we will implement project-based learning, and we'll apply a quasi-experimental study in which we will have a control group in which there will not be applied or implemented project-based learning, and another group that is an experimental group in which will be applied the project-based learning. So, what is it? What is project-based learning? First of all, we consider it a natural extension of content-based instruction in which students are able to use the language as a tool to learn about another topic. They can learn about geography, they can learn about history, about music, about art, but they use the language as a tool, and they acquire at the same time, it. This is a very student-centered approach in which students are supposed to be the focus, the main focus of the classroom. So the teacher is not anymore in the front, just giving instructions and explaining the subjects and explaining what they have to do. but the students are the ones that take like the major role in the classroom. So they start discussing what they have to do, they start making decisions, they start being the center of the classroom. That is the main purpose that we want to get to. Besides, this is a more cooperative approach rather than competitive. The students work towards a common goal, a common objective, so it's better for them to that rather than competing. So why use it? Jamie will explain a little more about this, but essentially this is the summary. We think that it's potentially motivating for the students, since we can enhance on their real interest. We can also connect with real world issues, so it's better in that way. It also promotes the authentic integration of skills. They can work speaking, they can work writing, they can work listening, they can work all kinds of skills, receptive and productive, both of them. And it's also collaborative, as I mentioned before. And the most important thing for us that we are working on communicative skills is that it's publicly presented. So, Jamie.
So, these are the positive outcomes of using project-based learning. So, for example, authenticity. A lot of the students that we had, they said, why to study English? What is the reason I want to study English in these four-level schools? If they, for example, there's a unit that is called Let's Travel. They have never traveled before. So they say, okay, so this is useless. So if we provide authentic materials that creates some, or that presents some problems in some real scenario context, they will say, I can apply what I learned from the classroom into my real life. So they will say, I really want to learn this. They will be more engaged with English. Also, students will have voice and a choice, because they could interact with the teacher, and they could get into an agreement that what is a possible project that we will do. Also, collaboration. So students tend to be very individualistic inside the classroom because they do not interact with each other with using these all methodologies. So with this project-based learning, they will collaborate with each other. They will create a group. So it will also enhance their social skills, as well as employability, because the skills that are being developed through the project-based learning are also connected with the 21st century skills that was proposed by, I don't remember the author, but that are very important, at least through this century. Reflection, they will reflect on their work. They will reflect because they will also need to evaluate their work at the end of the project. Also, they will publicly present, it's a publicly presented product, and that's very important because they will need to present their product. And at the same time, they will have to use they will have to communicate their ideas, how they did it, and what were the outcomes of the project. So they will have to speak and at the same time develop these communicative skills. They will receive feedback and revision from the professor or the teacher through the whole project. So professor will have to scaffold a lot of different skills, and also the language necessary to develop some skills that are necessary to develop the project. Community partners, it would also enhance, to create a community inside the classroom. That's very important. And lastly, the standards. That is really connected with the national framework in terms of the content knowledge and also the skills that are necessary and mandatory.
Yeah. So we have this quote from Haynes that he defined a little bit of project-based learning. So he defined it as a versatile vehicle for fully integrated language and content learning, making it a viable option for language educators working in a variety of instructional settings. It should be viewed as an approach to learning which complements mainstream methods and which can be used with almost all level, ages, and abilities of students. So it's a very complete approach that we think that can be very useful. Here we have a short presentation that we did about project work learning that we can send to you later. So it summarizes project-based learning. It's from an article from Stoller and Shepard. So it's very good. It has its various configurations. It has also different types of project-based learning work that you can work on, different types of organization, times, etc. So it will be there if you want to look at it later. So as I mentioned before, our project will be based on an implementation of project-based throughout the semester, throughout the whole year, actually. So we want to work in the first semester with 3 units. As we know in Chile, units are usually 3 units per semester. So we want to focus on that, and we want to make these 3 projects, because it's better for students to have shorter projects than longer, because they might lose interest if we do a longer project, like the whole semester or even a whole year. So we prefer to do it shorter and doing 3 in total. This project will work like an structured project. that Stoller and Shepard define it as organized by the teacher. So the students don't get to choose yet what they have to do. They have to make their own decisions, obviously, when they start working in the project. But the teacher is who organizes the project. The teacher is who gives instructions, who gives the topic, the themes. So it's better, we think, for students since they are not used to get to choose. Okay, so we don't want to overwhelm them. So that's what we want to do there. Maybe when they start working in their final projects in the last unit, we could give them the opportunity to do like an structured project. That is where students get to choose the topic, the theme, and how they are going to work. So we also want to always consider students' interests and real-world issues. We know that we have to connect everything to the national framework, to the plans and programs from the Ministry of Education in Chile, but we still can work with students' interest. So we want to link them once we start working with our teachers, our field teachers. And we want to create a production project. So we want a physical product so the students can present it. It can be a presentation, it can be something created, an artistic work. But at the end, we always want students to present it and to generate productive discussions among students so that they can use the language, they can communicate, and they can improve their communicative skills. That is the main objective of this project. So what will be the sequence of this project? This is also from Shepard and Stoller. This is a 10-step sequence that they propose. They summarize how it should work. So it's basically in the first three steps, the students and the teacher have to agree on the theme, on the structure of the project, and the final outcome that they are going to have. So then they can start gathering information, compiling and analyzing information, presenting the final product, and evaluating their own project. But the teacher has always, before they pass through these steps, to prepare students for the language demands that these steps require. So if they have to gather information, the teacher has to prepare them, for the language demands that this step requires. So that's crucial if we want them to do a project. We cannot leave them without tools. We have to teach them how to do it. And finally, they have to evaluate their own projects, so they pass through a more metacognitive process where they think about the project, if they like it, or what things they could do better if they learned, and so on. So the data collection is more of the same that we mentioned before. We are going to have this quasi-experimental group and this experimental group in which will be applied the project-based learning, so we get to compare. We want to focus on 5th grade. That is the mandatory group. The mandatory grade when students start learning English. And we want to measure students' performance in productive and receptive skills of English. So we're going to compare, and we want to see if students successfully increase their communicative skills or not. And
finally, this is our future product. So at the end of this year, after we implemented it and we see the outcomes, we see like how it went, also the possible problems that may arise from the implementation of this approach, we want to create a podcast. So this is our future product. We want to explain like the research process, the results, and also the possible solutions for the problems that may arise. But at the same time, we want to create it because we want to make it like a tool for teachers in Chile, so they can hear this podcast. They just to convince them that there is a solution, there is a possible approach that could tackle this issue, and we can provide this for them. Like it will not cost like anything. It will be free for them.
Yeah.
So and also we have this an infographic. So you can access to this. So there is a motivation to do this research, also the aim of the study, the research question, and also data collection, how we will analyze the data. So what is important also is even though we are focusing on language proficiency, we also want to check if they develop, for example, social skills. So even though, for example, they didn't have this improvement in language proficiency, maybe they work better in groups, maybe they improve that domain of them. Mm-hmm. But that's why it's very important also to consider the data that we collect.
Yeah. So here are our references, and that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Daniela, Jamie. Really good. Now we'll pass the panel if you can give some. I have some questions. Feedback or questions. Perfect. We need to have a microphone.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, congratulations and thank you for all this work that's going to impact our students in Chile. I have a general question just to understand better. So when you mentioned these 3 projects across the year, are you thinking of them like the whole unit or as a final project after doing like the traditional teaching?
It's for the semester. Like
3 per semester.
3 per semester.
Okay,
yeah.
6
It
per
depends
year.
obviously on the on how long are the periods of the semester. Sometimes it depends on the school, I think. But usually they have like 4 months. So we think of 3 main projects for each unit, 1 for each unit. So they create a final product for each unit.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, I don't know how to explain this. The whole unit will become the project, or you will have like traditional teaching and then the project?
They work towards the project, yeah. The
Okay.
whole unit.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And another question I have is, how do you think about the main obstacles that you mentioned something that there will be obstacles. What do you think will be the main obstacle?
I think that another obstacle can be like bringing this project to the schools, because we don't know how teachers are going to receive it, or maybe the heads of the school are going to receive it. So that might be a big problem, like to convince them to apply it, because it changed like the paradigm of education, I think, in most of schools. So that might be difficult. I don't know if you want to.
Also in the article, they mentioned some problems with this implementation of this method. For example, the length, as we mentioned, of the project. If it is too long, some students get unmotivated because of that. And also, for example, they have to work in groups. So what if somebody do not want to participate? The other students also get unmotivated. So we need to take those problems into consideration. But mostly it has very positive outcomes. So that's why we really hope that it could work, at least in Chile.
Congratulations. Just one more question. And how are you thinking about evaluation? Because it's like a big thing in schools, especially if you're going to be in a public school. I guess you'll have to like be accountable for evaluating students.
So I think that we obviously have to have the summative evaluations, but this is a project. The main grade is going to be the last project, but we have to prepare different tasks that they start working with, that they are evaluated as well, and they have to be summative because the school requires that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's mandatory, I think.
Yeah, congratulations. I just want to pass, but I want to add on the point you made, that I think one of the main obstacles will be what I think, maybe I'm super wrong, to kind of like scaffold the collaborative work between students.
Yeah.
I think you cannot take that for granted. Like you should really invest time and effort in explaining how to design roles or what each of them has to do for the team. Like I think that's something that you cannot just
Thank you for that insight. Thank you.
Well, similar to Tere, thank you so much for your presentation and for the project. There are many good things on it. I think it's very clear from what you show why project-based learning could be appealing and motivating for students. And I also think that this decision of having short projects and starting small, it's very wise and makes sense. One question I have is, what do you mean with this quasi-experimental study?
Yeah.
And how are you planning to compare like the different groups, considering they are going to be doing very different things?
Yeah, the thing is, it's not in the same classroom. We didn't mention that. I'm sorry, but it's we have 2 grades, different grades. We have a 5th grade A, for example, and a 5th grade B. And the 5th grade A or B, whichever it is, it's the experimental group in which we apply the project-based learning, and in the other group we don't change anything. So they maintain the same curriculum that they have worked throughout the whole history of the school in this case. Yeah. I don't know if it's clear.
And you are going to teach both classes?
It depends, because as we are going to be interns, we don't know if we are going to have like the 2 groups, but we are probably having only one. So in that grade, we are going to implement it.
But the question I have is how, because you are going to do an assessment to both classes, the same assessment, I suppose. Yeah. So how are you going to build that assessment if one class is going to do A and the other class is going to do B, and maybe they are going to work in different skills?
That's a difficult thing here, and that the one of the grades is not going to receive any different like they're not going to be implemented the project-based learning, so they are not going to have the same evaluations, they are not going to have the same structure of classes. It's going to be completely different.
Yeah, and also we want to measure the language proficiency, so it will be, so we want to measure the same for every single grade. But yeah, as you said, they will have different methodologies. So, for example, it is not only important to measure the project itself, but also how they develop the project through from the whole unit. So, for example, we will cover the same objetivo de aprendizaje from the national framework. So we will need to measure it, of course. And in the case of the group in which we are going to do this approach, there will be different skills that will be developed, and we can measure. But at the end, it's the same language proficiency. It's the same skills that are going to be required, for example, speaking, listening. So in that way, we believe that that's the way we are going to assess that. But also what we want to include is some surveys for students and also for the teacher, so to measure how do they feel using this approach. So of course, we are going to be the teacher, so we could do this survey, but also the students, maybe they feel comfortable, maybe they don't. So we also need to take that into consideration in the evaluation.
Yeah, that was going to be my advice. Maybe also measuring like the motivation and how excited are the students with the units.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate, I think, the entire presentation, the way you talk about the context in a really like broad and specific way at the same time. The way that you put yourself in it, like this is our experience, it's not just like literature, we lived it, and we are going to make it happen. I also appreciate that you talk about teachers as researchers. I think this is not like the focus of the work, but I think it's a really good way to empower and motivate teachers also. Just because I was thinking about Tomas' question, I think it's really important, especially if you want to present results, that it's really tricky, because to have real results, you have to measure the same exactly things. So if you are going to make different tests for different grades, it's not possible to have these results. So it's a good idea to have like additional measures. I think related to your goal, like be really specific in what you want to change in that classrooms. Maybe it is motivation and more than, I don't know, literacy skills. So I think you have to be really clear in your goal and then go to measure that, because it's difficult to make that assessment. I think my question goes in the line of the preparation. I think in one way, this time maybe are you the ones that are going to do it, but in the real world with other teachers, this idea that requires more work from their side to prepare for different projects in different groups, so they have to make like a customized preparation for each group, because you include this preparation for language in each project. That I think it's really good that they receive this like scaffolding and feedback to be working in this project. So it requires time, and also that the teacher can know about different topics. And also I was thinking in the preparation of the content. I think Tere asked if you wanted to do it like instead of traditional learning, that I think you are. That I think I'm doubting on that idea, because you talk about how project learning is like an extension of content learning. And I was thinking, what if maybe we teach some content and then we make project and we make this like a year thing. So we have 3 units and we talk about some content and then we make the project. I don't know, it's just like I was thinking how to make it more more applicable to schools, more measurable, like the way you can evaluate it, following like national standards and everything, and including this like great idea of working with authentic environments and ideas from the same students. So what are you thinking after my...
Oh, really? Okay, thank you for that. But yeah, it's a challenge, I think, to start doing this. But we think that maybe to start integrating the project-based learning with along with the content-based instruction, we can mix it with skills. Because as we wanted to focus on communicative skills, we can teach them like maybe strategies to communicate, maybe strategies to write, like how to communicate effectively. Those kind of things are the first things that comes to my mind in this moment. And always trying to connect it, that is another challenge, to the national curriculum, because we have to follow the national curriculum if we are in a public school in Chile. So that's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add something. Okay.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
I was thinking, you mentioned that students have to present their projects at the end, and I think that's a great opportunity. And from our experience at preschool, I think you should really like leverage that opportunity for the whole community. So maybe you can make, I think you're thinking the same, but maybe invite parents or somebody from the community or other teachers. Like, this can be an opportunity to put English as a nice, fun, interesting thing for the whole community. And I think it also make an impact not only in the students that you are serving, but in the whole community. So
yeah, that's the most important thing, I think. We can change that idea.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can turn around and show the people also. Say hello.
Well, hello everyone. We are Nicolás Aguilera.
And I'm Mayra Sepúlveda.
We are Chilean students from Chile, and we are here to present our project. Well, to start, have you ever felt frustrated of not being able of doing something? Well, that's something that happens in Chilean classrooms during English lessons. As a matter of fact, we have some percentages here. We found that 54% of students develops anxiety towards the English class, and 49.7% of students develops anxiety towards the use of English. And we think that these numbers are not high enough. I think that they are higher today. So what we want to accomplish with our project is to reduce the amount of negative emotions that students feel when they are in English classes through the development of a unit focusing on a podcast, and in that way we can reduce the negative emotions. Here's a preview of the things that we are going to see. It's very quick, so.
Okay. And well, as Nicolás already hinted, the problem of practice that we selected and that we are going to propose a solution for is a problem that is very common in Chilean classroom, which is a high affective filter during English lesson. High affective filter, in simple words, is the way that our negative emotions can affect our school performance or the way that we learn, our learning process. So emotions such as anxiety, nervousness, or self-doubt can affect us academically as well. In Chile, it is usual that students are affected in their performance and involvement in activities such as role plays, presentations, in general, activities that have to do with class participation. The opportunities you get to learn. So students who come from high-income households have the opportunity to listen and perhaps even use English in more contexts. They may have parents who also speak English. They may travel abroad. They may have particular tutorings. Whereas students who come from lower-income households really only have the opportunity to listen to English in the class of English because they have higher proficiency. Now, some of the possible explanations for this lack of willingness to participate has to do with what I was mentioning. Some students lack confidence in the knowledge of the language because, of course, in Chile, English is a foreign language to them. They don't feel like they know enough to express their ideas. This is also linked to the lack of linguistic resources. Of course, in our lessons, we try to provide students with as many resources as possible, with vocabulary, with grammatical structures, but we don't have enough time to give them all of the resources they need without overwhelming them and without making it impossible for them to learn everything. So they do not have everything to, again, express their ideas and do them justice. Some students may get low grades in our subject, which discourages them from participating and even putting in effort in our subject. They feel that it's not worth it. And finally, some students may be afraid to be mocked by their peers. If their pronunciation is not accurate enough, or even if it's too accurate, they might be mocked. This is not always the case, but it may affect their affective filter as well.
Yeah, and some consequences that we have about this behavior that we have seen, it's from the student perspective, is that they do not practice the language due to the lack of participation. And they enter a vicious cycle of not participating, which leads to low back grades, which leads to frustration, which leads to lack of practice again, because I don't want to lead with this thing that frustrated us. So that leads us to a vicious cycle that repeats itself over and over, and that leads students to hinder their learning process. And also from the teacher's perspective, there are activities that depend on the students' input, such as productive discussions. And without the students' input, we cannot do the class. And that's why we spend a lot of time in Chilean classrooms trying to make students participate, maybe calling someone randomly, maybe designing like pointing at someone for them to participate. And that's a great loss of time in Chilean classrooms. Well, that's why our project's objective is to offer students an opportunity to start participating in English lessons in a safer and less threatening environment. Additionally, we aim for students to have an opportunity to reflect on the importance of practice to reach their goals. So that's why our proposal is a sequence of lessons aimed at the development of a podcast. We thought about 8th or 9th grade for implementing these lessons in around a B1 level of proficiency. This will be developed in 6 lessons. They will work in pairs during class time. In fact, the only thing that is not done in class time is the recording of the podcast itself. All the rest of the activities are done in class time. And the topics that we are going to cover during this unit are self-doubt, overcoming challenges, and the importance of practice, as they are main topics that can help students to realize that they need to participate to become better at the language.
Mm-hmm. Now we would like to present our class sequence. It will follow a genre-based pedagogy approach. This is an approach that aims for students to create either an oral or written text that follows the conventions of a certain genre. So, for example, it is not the same writing a text to a friend than it is sending an email to the principal of your school to ask for or to propose something, a measure, or to call to ask for a refund, or to write a list of instructions of what to do if a building is on fire. Everything has its own conventions and some certain contents that you will usually find in these genres. In this case, of course, we want to teach students the genre of a podcast. Genre-based pedagogy has 3 stages. The first one is the deconstruction, where students are exposed to an example and they analyze it, the structure, the content. Then they move on to the joint construction, where the teacher and the students all create a text following the genre conventions. And then they move on to the independent construction, where the students create their own text. So consequently, our first lesson is the deconstruction of a podcast. We will show students a segment of a podcast episode, and they will use guiding questions to analyze it. So perhaps if you can join me here on your purple worksheet, you can see that here they have a little bit of context about the segment they will listen to. Then they have the transcript of the podcast. We highlighted the main ideas because since it is a conversation, there are fillers, there are examples, there's repetition. So this may help them. And then they have the questions for them to analyze, as I mentioned, the structure and the content. Then for our second lesson, we move on to the joint construction stage. We begin with a brainstorming. This is on your orange worksheet. Here we will give students an article about overcoming challenges. And the idea is that they read it and they answer these questions, where they will think about the information they can extract from this article to talk about this topic, and then relate those main points to their own experience. So they should answer on their own first, but then the idea is to conduct a class discussion where the teacher takes the students' ideas, writes them down to create a list of ideas that will be useful for our third lesson, which is the actual joint construction, which you can find on the yellow worksheet. In this lesson, the teacher would present the elements that are desired in a podcast episode, or at least in the ones we hope they create. And he or she will guide them to actually create the script for an imaginary podcast. So, for example, the teacher might begin by introducing the podcast. He or she may ask, okay, what do you want to name our podcast? When they decide, they can start writing a sentence such as, welcome everyone to another episode of such, and so on. The teacher will take the students' ideas to create the script, and they will write it here.
Well, now we go to the independent construction part of the unit. As you saw before, we tried to deconstruct the genre of a podcast, covering the contents and the structure of it. We then joined with the teacher and the whole class try to identify concepts that are needed to pull out from an article and relate to them personally, for them to write a script together, like a whole class, the teacher and the whole group of students. And now in the independent construction part, the students will be in pairs, and all job that it's done, it will be on their own. For example, in this green worksheet, we have an article that talks about the importance of practice. The article is different for many students. We have four different articles.
So you might have one of four.
Yeah, and that's main purpose for them to not to talk about the same thing with the same point of view, and to give some variety to the classroom. And then after reading the article, they will pull out the main ideas and then relate to them. For example, thinking about something that they mastered through practice, or something that they failed to do so because they lacked the practice necessary to do so. We want them to reflect on the good and the bad things, because that helps us to grow as human beings as well. After we go through the ideas of the green worksheet, we go to our blue worksheet, which is, as you can see here, is the same checklist that we saw in the third lesson, the yellow worksheet. It's exactly the same checklist with the exact same space to write the script. The only difference is now the students will be in charge of creating the script for the podcast. They will know what's the name of the podcast. They will know how to introduce the participants, because they already seen that with the teacher. Mm-hmm. And finally, we have our final worksheet, the red worksheet, which is for peer evaluation and feedback. After they create the script for the podcast in the fifth lesson, they will take the script to their homes and record the podcast there. They can do it in a in-person meeting. They can do it in online. They can each one record their own part and then put them together with a video editor. That's on their choice. So the important thing is that the podcast is recorded before the sixth lesson, because in that lesson the teacher will take the podcast that all students created and then will hand them to another couple, preferably someone that didn't read the article that the podcast talks about. And in that way, the students will have an overall impression of the article and the students' podcast that they have listened to. And we wanted to implement the 3 stars, 1 wish. The 3 stars are things that they love, that they appreciate about the podcast, or that they learn about the podcast that they have just heard. And 1 wish is something that they would like to maybe learn more about, or something that they wanted to be different about the podcast of their classmates. Well, our vision for this project is that it helps students to participate in further lessons, increasing the language proficiency and confidence inside and outside of the classroom. Because if not, the classrooms will remain silent. And no real learning process is done in silence inside the classrooms. They need to talk to develop their proficiency and practice to master the English language.
Well, we believe that this proposal may bring some benefits for the students. So first, of course, they will develop their skills. When they're writing the script for their podcast, they will be working on writing. And when they record it, they will be developing their speaking skills. They will do so in a safe environment because they will record this at home. Their classmates will not be listening. They have the opportunity to do multiple attempts in case they're not content with how their first recording came out, or the second, third, whatever it is. And they will be collaborating with a peer who will most likely be their friend, which may also reduce their affective filter. The format should also boost the students' motivation and confidence, as well as develop their speaking proficiency. And the three benefits that I just mentioned come from the format. They could talk about anything and gain these benefits, but we decided to take the opportunity to deal with topics that are relevant for their problem, this problem of practice, which is self-doubt, which is in the example, overcoming challenges, and the importance of practice.
And some supports that we bring to in this unit are the genre-based pedagogy approach and also the universal design for learning principles that are inside our unit. For the genre-based pedagogy, we thought that teaching a genre, it's something that it's really hard if you don't have a structure and a content necessary to build a genre. That's why we choose genre-based pedagogy for our podcast. In that way, the students will know exactly what the content is, what the structure is going to be, the thought process to go to get to the final product of a podcast, and how the final product is going to look like for them. In that way, they will get scaffolds like supports or helps during the whole unit for them to finally create their podcast on their own using the knowledge acquired before. And for the universal design for learning principles, these are principles that are for all students to be able to participate and reach the goal of doing a podcast. We have lots of models for podcasts. We have a segment, and we have some articles that can help them to build a podcast. And something very subtle, but it can help a lot, is the fact that our worksheets are colored. We know exactly in which lesson we are going to be by just looking at the color of the worksheet. That way the students may maintain some order, and they will know exactly what we are talking about just looking at the color of the worksheet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, question that remains is, what are our next steps? So the first thing we would like to do is to develop a survey to measure the students' affective filter before this sequence of lessons and after, because we want to see whether our proposal will lead to us fulfilling our objective. And for that, we need the student's voice. We would also like to share this material that we just shared with you. We also have a unit plan because we think this is a useful resource for other teachers who have groups who are also facing this issue, which, as I mentioned, is very common. So we would like this to go even further. These are our references, and I would like to end by inviting you, especially the teachers, to think about the role that silence plays in your classrooms. Silence is something that we wish for in our classrooms. I know I have, but it doesn't always have to be something we should be proud of. Sometimes students are silenced because they're not learning. So we want to encourage them to make some noise. So now the question is, are we going to remain silent about this, or are we going to help our students? Thank you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Mayra y Nicolás. Realmente impresionante. Sorry, I turned to Spanish. I forgot. So no, really impressive. I really want to be in that class, I have to confess. And yeah, so I pass to the panel. So if you can, I don't know.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I also wanted to be part of that unit. Yeah, I definitely think that the format and the activity might be engaging to students at those age. One question I have: you are thinking of this in 6 lessons? Yeah, I have some doubts about the time frame for this. I think it might take longer than that. Like, it's a challenging. It depends. I'm not an expert in English, so I don't know this B1 level. What does it mean? But I think this is a challenging task for the students. So it might take longer than 6 weeks. And especially things like I think that if you are thinking in low income students, like things on all those parts, like maybe recording these from home, it could be like a huge barrier for some of the students, and maybe it could make a huge difference if that is made in the school.
Well, I have to agree that it may be a challenge to do this in 6 classes. We divided it this way because we feel that each part is self-contained, but I believe it will greatly depend on the collaboration of the students, on how much they may struggle. I think it is possible, but with some students it definitely might be challenging, it might be even impossible. But I believe that will have to depend on the teacher's conditions. Maybe he or she will have the opportunity to take longer, or maybe he or she will have to perhaps adapt some of this. And regarding the second question, well, we think it may be recorded in accessible ways because we're not looking for great sound quality necessarily. We think that they could do this over Zoom. We think that they could do this with a cell phone in the room, or perhaps, well, we haven't thought of this. It also will depend on the resources of the school. Perhaps the teacher can provide something for the students to record. I think this has to be studied case by case. But sometimes when we think of podcasts, we think of elegant microphones, and we don't think it necessarily has to be the case. I don't know if you like that.
I think you sum it up very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also think that it was a really great idea. I also appreciate that you were really coherent in all your presentation, your research, the question you ask yourself, and how you invite us to also have these questions and try to think about it. The way you presented data at the beginning, and the way that your benefits from this proposal are really directly addressing the issues. So I think it was really convincing. To go to another topic, I was thinking about this peer feedback. I think it's a great idea, especially if they are working in groups. I just wonder about this. How can we make it maybe more specific to make it more useful for the growth of our students, maybe more related to English skills also, like adding some things, because I'm thinking in the entire evaluation, one thing that you have to do as a teacher is to address the national standards. So this is one thing. But this, I think it's really good for growth, confidence, and the rest of the English development in that class. But I just wonder, how can we make it more useful in that sense?
Okay, I can take
Yeah.
I can tell you the answer. We started thinking about covering the problem of motivation and student participation, but of course we have to reach some standards in our classroom. I mean, the curriculum, it's very textual about the things that a student should do in this moment of time, in this grade, and all of that. And we also have grades to deliver to the Ministry of Education. So what we thought, we didn't think about it in the presentation, but we thought it here is the fact that we may have some formative and summative assessments using the exact same worksheets that we've seen here. For example, the first, the joint construction script can be a formative assessment. The script of that they constructed can be another formative assessment. The podcast itself can be a summative assessment using a rubric, using content words, maybe some expressions, maybe fluency, and all these criteria that measure the student level of proficiency in the language. So I think that there are some things that we can include to manage to be in the national standards of Chile.
Perfect. I think you answered one of my wonderings, and I think that's great. And I appreciate how you do the real exercise and think about the challenge that could appear and how to measure it. But just for the peer feedback, because I think it's a great idea, just to use all this potential. I just think that maybe when you ask about overall impressions, maybe it's less useful than ask even their peers to be focused on some specific things that maybe could help them to growth and keep learning in the class.
We can add another rubric to the peer feedback then that includes or maybe even have a lesson before the peer feedback that teaches the students how to give feedback to their peers using specific criteria, and in that way we can make it more useful for the proficiency part of the activity.
Can I add something? I think what you're saying is a great suggestion, because I personally thought about the peer feedback more of as an audience would listen to the podcast, would probably not analyze linguistic, the linguistic aspect of it. But I think it's a great idea. I think the material could also be modified to implement this. But as it is, perhaps we could try to aim the students towards specific aspects in the instructions, because our intention is not just to give them the material and forget about it. It's to guide them throughout the entire process, including in the independent construction part. The idea is that we're always there monitoring, helping anything that we can and that the students need. So I think this would be another case of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one idea, because we're short on time. I think talking about purpose and thinking about the last group, I think this is great. Maybe you think about this, but my suggestion is to, before starting this project, maybe have a conversation with the students, 9th and 10th grade, you said. Why are we doing this? So maybe even show them why, this cognitive filter, the affective filter. Talk with them. I think it'll give more purpose to this activity, and they'll understand what are they doing this, and might be even more powerful for them.
We'll include that in the part of the survey as well then.
We can merge those two ideas, because it is a great suggestion as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francisca Llancas, and with Daphne Polanco, we're going to present our problem of practice. This refers to using Translanguaging to boost community building in the EFL classroom. A little bit about us. We are both senior year students from the English Pedagogy program at Universidad Católica de Chile. Our formation focuses on teaching English as a foreign language within the Chilean context. We have both had experiences with varying grades, and both in private and public schools, and we've noticed an overuse of Spanish to learn English. Due to this, we are enthusiastic about learning practices that enhance EFL learning and second language acquisition. So, starting off with the hard facts, 72% of Chileans have a basic level of English, and only 2% are fluent in the language. We start having mandatory English classes from 5th grade onwards, and we are expected to graduate with an intermediate level of English. However, that is not the reality in our country, and we have wondered, why do students use Spanish to learn English? And we propose a solution to use strategically Spanish so students can learn. A little bit more about the Chilean context. We have about 40 students per class. Teachers do not have their own classroom, so it is not a personalized space as we have seen here. And in these classrooms, students present a lack of community due to the anxiety they show towards the language. The majority of students seem to feel as outsiders within their own class. This not only affects language acquisition, but also their emotional well-being. When we got here to Framingham, our experience visiting schools showed us a completely different scenario. We had the chance to visit a dual language classroom, and we saw that students feel welcomed, and they are not afraid to make mistakes. Students support each other and care for one another. They have this sense of belonging to a community, and this results in more independent learners that are aware of their learning process and also their emotions. So we identified 4 factors for our problem of practice. That is the no sense of belonging students show in our context, the over-reliance of their L1, which in our case is Spanish, and a high affective filter for the 4 skills, that is to say reading, writing, listening, and speaking. They also have no social emotional component, or a little social emotional component, but not to the level that we want. So how can we build community in an EFL classroom? We decided to use Translanguaging as an alternative. Translanguaging is the use of both Spanish and English, and also all the languages you know, to communicate effectively and interact with others. In the classroom, it can be used as a scaffold to encourage and enrich the use of the target language. However, it has to be strategic. So here we narrow down 4 categories to talk about the importance of translanguaging in language learning. First, we have that it goes beyond traditional methods. So it acknowledges that the diverse background of students have, and it allows them to use it all to understand and express their ideas in English. Then we have that it promotes language development. It fosters a comfortable environment, and students can transfer skills from their languages to English and explore linguistic connections and gradually develop their English proficiency. Then we also have cultural inclusivity, which in our context is something very essential, as we have a lot of migration right now. So translanguaging respects the cultural diversity present in the classroom and creates an inclusive atmosphere that values and celebrates the richness of students' linguistic and cultural backgrounds. And finally, we also have cognitive benefits, which allows learners to make connections between languages and facilitates cognitive flexibility and metalinguistic awareness.
Okay, so based on everything that we mentioned, now we are going to talk about the potential solution, or what we think it might work to boost community and to build this sense of belonging. So what we created is a translanguaging guide, a sort of manual. Remember that translanguaging is basically just using the languages that you know. In our case, it will be English and Spanish. So this is a product in which teachers, EFL teachers, can look for different strategies to use them as a starting point to build community and to feel students, make them feel welcome, accepted, and they are part of the classroom. Here we have them. Most of them actually address this social emotional component that we think is something that is not that present in Chile, and also covers the whole Thai approach, something that we learned during the Boston full-day workshop. The final goal will always be the immersion in the L2, and this is very important to mention because we think that this is a scaffold, this is a starting point, but it's not the end, it's not the goal. So the idea is always that the learners learn English, they immerse themselves into the language. Great. And funny how we started thinking about this, and then we visited Framingham Public Schools. We attended to Cameron Middle School, and we found the examples. They use them in the dual language system. They use translanguaging. And here we have some of them. First, they allow the students to use the L1 when creating classroom agreements. And here we have them. Here we have English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Then they also allow learners to use the L1 during the social-emotional component during the class. So students feel accepted. They feel that they understand them because they can express themselves in the language that they prefer. And finally, allow the students to use their L1 when activating previous knowledge. And here we have a picture that we took at the Cameron Middle School that the teacher used a famous quote from a Brazilian politician to introduce the content about the environment so students can actually relate to that and they can connect their previous experience with the new content in the new language, in this case, English. Now, to expand this concept of the guide that you have over there, we're also thinking about adding collaboration to this. So the idea is that we're going to share this guide to the teachers in our practicum experience that is coming up soon on March, and they can rate this strategy and they can add notes to it. So here we have the name of the strategy, a short description of it, the implementation, and the teacher's appreciation. That is to say, what do they think? Was it worth it? Did it really work? So the idea that we created this collaborative document in which teachers can tell us if the strategy is worth trying it or not. Let's just show you an example. There we have them. So this is a sample. Here we have one of the strategies that is cultural representation. Here we have the rating, and the idea is that the teacher tells us how did that person implement this strategy. So here we have the teacher used a meme about green issues in Spanish to introduce this topic, and actually says the teacher's appreciation. Why is it important to use this strategy, or why isn't? Now, for sure, there are some possible challenges. First of all, some students might rely a lot on their O1 to express themselves, and that might happen. Also, existing languaging policies within educational institutions might rely only on the L2 immersion, which is perfectly understandable. And finally, there might be peer pressure. Some students might not use their L1 because they feel that they are not proficient in the L2, so maybe they feel disregarded. Now, how to tackle these challenges? First of all, the teacher avoids to use the L1 because we want students to feel immersed in the L2, but we are not going to forbid the students from using the L1. The idea is that they feel accepted. The use of L1 must be regulated and must have a structure. Again, the idea is to have an L2 immersion, but the teacher must control when and how to use the L1, and that is present in the guide that you have over there. Finally, and this is the most crucial part, translanguaging does not mean teaching English and Spanish, but actually trying to bridge the difference, trying to bridge the gap between both languages. Now, conclusions. Based on everything that we mentioned, is this idea worth pursuing? We believe that it is. First of all, it considers the social-emotional component that we think is not that present in Chile. Also creates a sense of belonging and community. It has a practical implementation with the guide that you have over there. The teacher also can rate them and they can see if that actually works or not. It's inclusive and culturally responsible. We are actually addressing the background that the students have, and we are taking their experience to connect with the language. It's beneficial for language acquisition. Overall, that we believe that this idea creates autonomous, independent, responsible students who make connections with the language. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Francisca y Daphne. ¿Quién quiere partir con un sorry? Who will start with some comments?
I can start. Thank you so much, Daphne and Francisca, for your presentation. Yeah, I think this paper where the teachers can write how they implement this, and they can share their implementation of this and rate it, could be like very useful and gives you an idea on about how things are going in the classroom. One question or suggestion, any of those, it's I think that there could be a large gap between all these resources that you are providing to teachers and what they need to correctly implement this in the classroom. So there is like, maybe they need more training before implementing this. Maybe just with these guidelines, they could understand something very different from what you are saying. So how are you thinking on bridging that gap?
Okay, that's a very good suggestion. Definitely, teachers might need training. So we're thinking we're about to immerse ourselves during the practicum. So we're thinking about just ourselves trying to monitor and trying to model these strategies first. And this is all about trying and failing, but also that is part of the learning process. So if teachers try it, and then we can have meetings to discuss how it went and just learn from each one of the experiences that they have.
Yeah, I would like to add on to what Daphne said. It also depends on maybe the level of English we have in each school. So you evaluate and assess if they need more scaffolds in Spanish or if they need less. So the idea is to see what each class needs.
Thank you so much. You start to explain me something like this the time we see each other before. I think I really appreciate that you think a way to scaffold actual teaching and learning in schools, to move it from where we want it to go, like not just dreaming on every possibilities, instead of like trying to think a way to scaffold the thing that is happening right now in schools, that they are overusing Spanish in English classrooms. So I think to acknowledge that reality and to try to think a way to scaffold that, it is really useful. And also, as Tomas said, like to having a concrete guide to use it. I also was thinking how teachers, when they create good ideas, can share it with each other and create like a bigger pool of guidance. I'm also, I think, I just wonder, I think when you see it implemented, as you tell me, it seems like practical and easy and really doable. But I'm also thinking about this gap between what teachers are doing now, what they understand about this like proposal or theory, and the way they can really make it happen. And in that sense, I think to have this like one page, it's really good, but maybe it's a little confusing because it has like many ideas and many goals. So if you try to think, if you have to explain it to a teacher and you want that he can implement it like the next month, what are like the few main points that you will say to ensure that she takes like the main idea of this?
So I think that the main component of our guide is the socio-emotional part. So the idea is that the students feel welcomed. And something that we mentioned during the presentation as well is that the teacher is not a translator. So the idea is that we encourage the students to speak the language, and they can actually speak to us in Spanish, but we will reply in English. So that also makes an effect. The students feel that we understand them and they can understand us while we speak English, and we can also communicate. So I think that is the most, I would say, the most precious components that we have.
I think you did it great. In this explanation, I get it, the whole idea, yeah.
Okay, would you like to add something?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Last comment. Congratulations. I think as Margarita said, I wrote here it is realistic and strategic, because instead of saying you shouldn't speak like Spanish, that it's the reality, you think of a super clever, strategic to leverage that and use it in a constructive way. So congratulations for that. I'm just thinking, similar to my last comment, how to communicate this to students, maybe engage them. So I will always speak in English to you, but these are some spaces where you can feel welcome to express yourself. Like, I think the more explicit we are setting the norms for our class for everybody, the better the results. So maybe that's also a component to think of, like how to, will you explain this for students, or have you think about that, or how do you?
Well, we have thought about it. So the idea is to try to implement it from the start. We thought 5th grade because it's mandatory, but some schools start in 3rd grade. So maybe classroom routines and trying to always communicate with them about it, and leaving the door open for any suggestions, or if they feel uncomfortable using English or Spanish, we can just try to reach an agreement and get to where we want to, for them to feel comfortable.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for the suggestion. Very good.
Yeah, it's just to be like consistent and for them to understand why sometimes I can speak in English and why sometimes I can speak in Spanish, and why is this allowed and this is not allowed. Like, just to make it super clear so everybody can feel safer at the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, good afternoon, everybody and everyone online. My name is Felipe Gonzalez, and together with Graciela Asenjo and Hete Núñez, we are thrilled to present our project proposal, which is called Using Authentic Materials in the Chilean EFL Context. EFL standing for English as a Foreign Language, which is the context in which English is taught in Chile. Regarding the organization of this presentation, we have the following. So first, we're going to start with a brief contextualization of who we are and our problem of practice and our motivations, of course. Then we're going to talk about the problem of practice itself, regarding all the research behind that we were able to collect. Then we're going to talk about the main goals of this project, our vision, and finally, we would like to conclude with some final remarks.
Okay, so before starting our presentation, I want us to take a quick trip to the past. So I want you to envision yourselves like you are in 7th grade right now. I'm your English teacher. You're learning English for the first time in your lives. And we're reviewing the present simple tense. So it's about routines, habits that you do in your life. And I first present you with this material right here. So it's a fictional role play or conversation between two fictional people. And I also present you with fictional or, edited questions and answers. So it's a very general material. And I show you this, but then I show you this video right here. So it's a video about maybe your favorite celebrity, your favorite singer, actually using the present simple, learning the same, but in a different context. She's in her house, maybe telling you about her likes, dislikes, her interest. So I want you to raise your hand and think about which one is more meaningful to you. Or now, as an adult, which one would you have remembered? This one? I want you to raise your hand if you will remember this one more. All right, no hands. So raise your hand if you would remember this, if this would have been more memorable for you. All right. So there's a general agreement that the more authentic or real life resource is more likely to be memorable and meaningful for your learning of a new language, in this case, English. So I want you to keep that in mind for this presentation.
As you answer, the same think our students. So we're 3 student teachers, and the 3 of us have had experience in 7th grade. What we noticed was that the students were very disengaged, were very reluctant to participate, and were not really aware of the importance that English has in their lives. So then when we came to Boston, we were really surprised to see that kids were the opposite. They enjoyed being in the classroom and they were very excited to learn. So we started to wonder what was happening and what could be the difference. And we realized that teachers in Boston and in the schools in Framingham use many materials to support the content and support the lessons. Whereas in Chile, we were only seeing that teachers use the materials from the Ministry of Education and handouts. So we started to think of a way of solving this problem and to encourage teachers to use different materials that support their lessons.
Okay, so far we've mentioned authentic materials, real-life resources, but what are they? What are their characteristics, and how can we define them? So authentic materials in education have a plethora of different benefits, ranging from on-task behavior, concentration, engagement, and providing students with more social cultural awareness. And regarding the definition of an authentic or genuine text, we have that this is any type of resource, be it oral or written, that has been crafted for a real purpose and not primarily with a pedagogical intention in mind, that usually, I would say always, encapsulates the use of authentic language within its own community. So in the case of EFL, the teaching of English as a foreign language, here we are talking about any type of resource, as I said, written or oral, that has been created in an English-speaking country, such as the US, the UK, or Australia.
So we know, and research supports,
the benefits that authentic materials have to support the learning of students. We also know, because research says so, that for authentic materials to be successful, they need to go through a selection. We cannot just only add any material, but we need to find the exact material that correlates with our contents, and with our language objectives, which is a process that is very time consuming. Researching about the context of our teachers in Chile, we realized that teachers know the benefits that authentic materials have, but they face many difficulties that disencourage them from using them. For instance, lack of time, lack of resources, and the lack of knowledge for going through this process of selecting a material that could be beneficial. Additionally, as I mentioned, teachers tend to use the textbooks provided by the Ministry of Education. So when finding a solution for this problem, we wanted something that could support teachers and to make their work easier.
Yes, so in thinking about our product or what we wanted to develop after identifying this problem, we came up with two main areas or target audience. The first group is pre- and in-service educators or teachers. So we think that with the outcome that we developed, it would save a lot of planning time for teachers because they wouldn't have to go out of their way and take their planning time to actually develop those materials themselves. They would get the access to these materials, as I will show you in a few minutes. And also, we wanted to do something, a project that was easily accessible for students and their caregivers or parents as well, so that not only teachers can access this material as most teacher materials are, but that students can also navigate and use. And we think this is what's important because, as stated by the national curriculum, as it says here, 7th grade students should be able to communicate in diverse, authentic contexts and start creating interdisciplinary connections. And what better way to prepare them to do authentic communication than to expose them to real life scenarios and real life communication and use of the language. So we have two main objectives or goals. The first of these is to offer free, easily accessible alternatives of authentic text and tasks for 7th grade EFL educators and students. We start with 7th grade, as we mentioned, because we have taught in 7th, but this is supposed to also grow over time. And the second goal is to foster student engagement and the development of different language and social-cultural skills.
Okay, so now regarding our actual solution or our actual product to our problem of practice, we ultimately decided to go for something more feasible to do. And in this case, it is the creation of a free, hopefully user-friendly web page called Teachers Toolbox on Google Sites that could offer different alternatives for authentic materials. So now Graciela and Heidi are actually going to show you a demo version that we have of this website.
Okay, so this is Teachers Toolbox. This is a demo version of hopefully a well-constructed web page. And the idea of this web page is that teachers can easily access authentic materials and ideas on how to use them. So if you look at the banner in here, you can see that it is divided into authentic materials, lesson plans, and we also have a blog. And if you click each tab, it will be divided by grade. So as we mentioned, the idea is that we can build on this webpage and that we get other teachers to contribute so we can have materials for each grade and each curricular unit from the curriculum. So for instance, if we go here to 7th grade, you will see that it is divided by unit. And I'm going to click here in the 7th grade page. Here you can search by unit and you can search by skill, because a little bit of context, the curriculum in Chile for English is divided by skills. So if you go, for instance, to listening skills, you will find the description for this skill that is provided by the curriculum, the links to the official documents that could support our instruction, and finally, the materials. So for now, we have only 4 materials for each unit, but the idea, as we said, is to build on this and add more and more materials.
Yep, so now I will show you a little bit how the resources look like when you enter each unit. So for example, let's go to the second unit of 7th grade, which is called Healthy Habits. So when you enter each unit, you can see this, which is the purpose of the unit as stated in the national curriculum. Then again, you have the official documents, which is the national framework, the program, and also a website that has resources done by the ministry. And here you have our resources. As Graciela said, this is supposed to grow over time, so we hope to have many, many resources. And for instance, when you click on one of these, in this case, we found TED Health Podcast, which is a podcast, of course. There's a description of the resource that touches on the contents and the different topics that the resource includes. Also the type of material that it is, and also to make it even more tailored to the teacher's needs for each lesson plan, we also wrote related objectives from the curriculum. So if I were to plan a unit about objective number 3, I could use this resource. And also it specified the skills that will most likely be developed by this material. In this case, it's mainly listening. But we didn't want to leave it at that. We didn't want to provide just the resource and like say, good luck, do your job, do whatever you want. But we also provided a list of suggested activities that include different ideas of tasks or how you can apply it, focused on different skills, not only the main skill that the resource focuses on. So for example, if I were to work on listening comprehension, I could ask questions in groups, for instance, to check comprehension. I could also do a writing task after this, and they could also do a similar presentation than the one that they listen on the podcast, etc. So this is pretty much the gist of our website.
And finally, we also included a blog, because as we said, we wanted to create a community out of this. So in this blog, teachers can comment on how they felt using the web page and can also suggest other materials that could be added to this website. In this sense, our vision for this project is for it to be collaborative, and that this could be even a legacy project that we could pass from a generation from this program to the other. And the idea is that as many educators as possible can participate in this, because we truly believe that this would benefit teachers and students to have a greater quality of education. Our idea is not to judge teachers for not include these materials, but to support their instruction for it to be better.
Okay, so now we would like to conclude our presentation with the following remarks. Firstly, as seen at the beginning, utilizing authentic materials in Chile has many challenges. It's not an easy task. And the decision that we decided to go for is the creation of a user-friendly website that could support the effective implementation of authentic materials. The idea of this project is to provide both teachers and students with a wide array of authentic tools. And the ultimate idea is to help create a community of teachers and students and parents, so we can keep expanding this project to future cohorts. Before finishing our presentation, we would like you to take a look of the references that we used and we consulted for our project proposal. And in case you want to provide us with some feedback, here you have a QR code, or you can always raise your hand. And in case you want to contact us, here you have our emails. And just before finishing, we would like to thank our university, the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, and the Alliance of ChileMass with the Chris Walsh Center at Framingham State University for really making this possible. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, so if you scan the code, you will access our blog in our page, so you can leave a comment or further questions or feedback.
Or recommend us any resources that you know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really amazing presentation.
Thank you.
So who will start?
Well, congratulations. I think this is like the dream for every teacher.
Thanks.
So I really wish you like all the best. My comment is just an idea. Maybe you thought about this, but I think there is potential into a partnership with your university, like pedagogy, English pedagogy at UC. I think maybe a class or a professor can help you with this. Maybe I was thinking, what if one assignment has to contribute to this? For example, at least you'll have 50 more resources. Like, I think all of the students in the country that are in the same position as you, like last year doing their practices, their internships, they will have the opportunity to contribute. So I think that's an easy and quickly way to scale the program in an easy way. I hope it might be helpful.
Yeah, we've definitely thought about that, and thank you for reminding us of that, actually. So the idea is to disseminate it in our program, because we have tons of practicum experiences and a lot of partners. So obviously the idea is to use these channels to keep building this amazing resource.
Thank you.
Well, thank you also for the presentation. It's amazing. You are aiming like very high, so congratulations for that. I think I agree with you, like authenticity, it's key to motivate students, and sometimes there is a lack of authentic material in our classroom. So it's great that this project is filling that gap. My concern, and I see kind of the answers in what you showed, is that a class for encourage deep learning, it needs authenticity, but it also needs rigor. And sometimes a lot of this material can be like misused and like lack that rigor part that probably it's even more difficult. So how are you thinking about that?
Actually, when we came to find the arguments for the proposal and when we did some research, we found that it's not one or the other, you know, they're complementary. And as you say, it's both are necessary for understanding and communicating in English. But facing the fact that the curriculum says that we need to, or students need to be able to communicate in authentic real life context, what we've seen, and that's what we developed this idea, is that it's mainly classrooms, AFL classrooms are mainly textbook based. It's not that we should antagonize textbooks, or we should antagonize only content teaching or direct instruction, but that we should like complement each other. So we believe that this is a good tool because we need to incorporate more authentic materials into our teaching, and it's a sort of an idea of complementarity. You know, it's not like we're saying that we should not resort to the textbook, resort to the material. So we believe that it's important to help teachers because they don't usually use them because they lack the time, as Graciela mentioned. So that's what I wanted to make that point, just to be clear that we're not antagonizing one against the other.
Yeah, also because this is just the demo. I mean, obviously the page will grow, and our idea, we could make it easier, for instance, make suggestions that are more in-depth, so teachers can really grasp how they can complement textbooks or worksheets with these materials.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking a little bit on that line. Something small, but maybe adding in the future reviews to the videos, so to understand which are downloaded more or whatever. Yeah. And also maybe you will get like exemplary teachers implementing using these videos with the rigor part, and you can share that through the web page. But that's obviously a second step. But congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Thank you so much for this. Not only the presentation, because you actually make it real, so it was easy for us to see, and I imagine like all teachers that could see it, how it works, and I think it's really good to have have made the exercise and to be able to see it. I also appreciate that you think a lot about how it helps teachers, not only students, because I think it is your first goal, but how are you helping teachers? How are you make their task, like their big task of teaching English, something more engaging and motivating and always, I think, even easy, because I think for them it's difficult to teach with materials that not engage students. So I think it is important that you are addressing teachers' needs and challenges. And in this same way, I was wondering how can we help them to start using these tools? How can we help them to, I don't know, maybe being really clear about in which parts of the content they can use this material to not lose the other part that you think it is important too. So I don't know, this is scaffolding for the actual use of the material. I was wondering.
Yes, as we mentioned, the idea is for the page to be perfected, so we can add many features that are not available yet. And actually, you can all help us with this by sharing this webpage. That would be really amazing, because we really believe in how helpful it could be. And again, as I said, we do not want to judge teachers for not using anything engaging, but to help them to improve their lessons. So it would be really amazing that all the people that are here could share that. And I think as we get more people to collaborate, we can also achieve that, to make better suggestions that are more structured and that have more scaffolding on how to use. For instance, if it is a teacher that is the first time including authentic materials, what does it mean and how you can achieve it to be successful?
And yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. So the website is also thought to include suggested activities below each resource. And we actually have this blog section in which teachers, students, or parents can post their experiences regarding the use of certain resources. So we also think that that could be part of the scaffolds that, as a website, we offer to anyone that wants to use this type of resources. And as Graciela mentioned, it could obviously be very helpful if you could collaborate with the page, so we can actually make it bigger and, as you said, more accessible to everyone.
Thank you so much.
I want to give a big applause to all the groups that has been amazing, and Jenny for preparing everybody. So please come here. And I want, before we finish the streaming, let's come, all the people here, so we can say hello to the people that are behind the screen. Everybody here, the panel and everything, and everybody, so we can take a picture too. So everybody can see all the people that are here. Let's maybe we can mute it. ¿Lo muteas? Estamos.